Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social Podcast. Today we are going to take a look ahead at already the 12th round of the UCI Cyclocross World Cup, and it's in Dendermonde. I will be talking about that race with Twan and Issam.
Hello.
Everybody.
As said, we are today taking a look ahead at the 12th round of the UCI Cyclocross World Cup in Dendermonde. And the main story here is going to be that Mathieu van der Poel is going to make his comeback towards the World Cup. And that was first planned to be in Rukve and Namur, but that got postponed because he had a knee injury. But now he's going to come back in Dendermonde. Twan, what do you think that Van der Poel can do at his return to cyclocross?
I think we'll see a very good Van der Poel. He might struggle a little bit with some of the basic stuff like technique at the start, but I expect to see him up there and competing for victory right away.
So that means challenging with Van Aert and also the winners of last weekend, Pidcock, Van Toerenhout, Iserbyt, of course, also there. Do you think that as well, Issam, or do you think he might struggle a bit more?
To compete immediately for victory, I don't know. I think that he will definitely be up there. You know, a super talent like Van der Poel is not going to be having too many issues adjusting and sitting on a cyclocross bike. You know, the talent is there, the potential is there. The guy is, super fast, so he's not going to have any struggles in a way. But then again, I have a feeling that he's not going to be immediately there 100% battling it out with the others, fighting for the victory immediately. I think he will be close, but I have a feeling that Van Aert at the moment is just a little bit ahead, and maybe in Van Toerenhout and in Iserbyt, those guys, and also with Aert as well, don't forget him. It's gonna be very tough in my opinion. He's gonna be fighting around maybe position 3, position 4. He can surprise me, and I think if the race is going to be a little bit slower and tactical in the beginning, he has a chance. But if they don't really give him the room to get in a rhythm, to get away from the back, he's starting from 3rd row, I think, or 4th row, then it's going to be obviously very hard for him, and then I would see him around position 3, position 4.
I think it's a bit hard to estimate where Van der Poel will be, because I remember when Van Aert made his comeback, I was thinking that the talks about him not being in great form, having some issues, that they were real. And now here with Van der Poel, there's a lot of contradicting news going around. Today Van der Poel in an interview himself said, I have back issues still a bit, which is a lingering issue that he also had towards the end of the road season, also forced him to skip the World Championships mountain bike. He says, my knee injury was pretty serious. It's contradicting from what we heard earlier. Earlier, his dad, Adrie van der Poel, said, no, the knee injury is not serious. The only reason he skips Rukve and Namur is because he got a bit of a buff on training and he needs to improve a bit more. He could race here, he could maybe even compete for a podium, but that's not like Van der Poel. Mathieu competes to win. He doesn't come here and use races to improve his form. That's not who he is. Although I do think that that was his tactic last season. But besides that point, it's just contradicting each other a bit. I feel like Van der Poel is trying to downplay the expectations, which is normal. But then again, I do expect Van der Poel to be on a podium. Will he fight for the win? Well, I think Van Aert is a serious opponent here. Van Aert, of course, coming back from a training camp in Spain with Jumbo-Visma. But the parcours in Dendermonde, of course, we all remember it from the absolute mud fest it was last year. Running sections on the flat, hills being taken out because you couldn't ride them. There was this section where the mud was so thick that Katie Compton got stuck in it with her knees. So that's what we remember it from. Will it be the same this year? I tend to think it won't. There is the prediction of rain, and there are youth races, so it will get muddy. It's by far not as much rain as we had last year. But nevertheless, I think it's going to be muddy, and that should suit Van Aert. I think Van Aert is going to be the top favorite here.
I think Van Aert, after his training camp with the team, which I don't think it's an individual one, it's with the team, but I think he's going to do his own program there. The way he was riding in Boom, the way he was riding overall the races that he did, I saw Van Aert that was very hungry in a way. He looked very good. He was in very good shape, very sharp as well. I think that Van Aert at the moment it will be a little bit ahead of Van der Poel, and that will be different than previous years, because I think that, the years before, Van Aert was just a little bit behind, and now I think he's a little bit ahead. So it will be interesting to see, but I can say with a lot of confidence that Van Aert is the main favorite for Dendermonde. Yeah.
It's just hard to look besides Van Aert after what he's shown this season. He's ridden 3 races, won them all. He's moved up in the rankings. I think he'll be starting on the 2nd row now, or maybe just on the 3rd. He'll be starting ahead of Van der Poel as well. So, in my opinion, the only thing you can do is pace hard from the start. But Dendermonde is a pretty wide course. Overtaking is relatively easy. Van Aert, unlike Pidcock, is a rider who cuts through the field easily. So, I think it will be hard to do something against Van Aert here. But as Twan said, Van der Poel is a super talent, so he should be able to probably be up there for the podium. But Twan, what do you think Van der Poel needs to do? How should he tackle this race if he should be up there for the win? What's the best tactic he can go for?
I think you try and wait and see like how you compare to a Van Aert in the race. So you try and sit on a little bit as much as possible, and of course it depends on how much rain there will be, on how difficult the course will be. So I think we'll see a bit of a tactical race, and we might just get a 2-up sprint in the end.
Yeah, and the sprint between those two would be exciting, but I think the parcours will be too hard to let it eventually come down to a sprint, but we'll wait and see. The parcours also changed a bit compared to last year. There's now a sandpit in it and a couple of other things, so I don't know. I think it's still the same location. They've only moved away from the part that was the worst in terms of rain last year. That was just insane. That part is now taken out, and they've changed a couple of things, so it's interesting, and I think we could be in for a good race. Do any of you guys think that Pidcock can also compete with Van Aert, or otherwise with Van der Poel, or just in general for the win or the podium?
I think that Pidcock definitely has a chance to be up there for the podium. I think I liked what he did in Rugven. In Namur, it was also quite good. So obviously, I think now he's ranked 13th or something in the UCI. So he will be now, I think, row 2, which is already better than where he started in Namur, I guess. So he will be having an easier time getting through the field, and that is obviously a plus. That's an advantage. So I think he will be there for the podium. But it's very hard to speculate about, because we don't know how the parcours is going to be, if it's going to be really tough or it's going to be a little bit faster and easier. I think if it's a bit tougher, I think that Pidcock has a better chance. But then again, his shape is not really up there. And then when it's faster, his technique is a bit rusty, and from time to time I see some little mistakes. But then again, he has the condition to stay up with the guys. So it's really hard to say if he's going to be able to battle for the win. But for the podium, I definitely see him up there.
I think he has the condition. I just think he needs to get into a rhythm a bit, and that's what he said himself that he's struggling with, and that always takes time for him. He needs to get into a rhythm, and once he found that, then the results start going up. And last year he had that as well. Of course, a shocking beginning of the season in Tabor. He's saying that he's ahead of his schedule this year compared to last year, which he should be, considering his higher level. I think he was good in Namur, but still his technique was rusty. He said it himself in the interview as well. I just made too many mistakes. Of course, also had a puncture and had issues with tire pressure in the first laps. So considering all of that, to still be relatively close to winning Namur, that's just a good job by Pidcock, and I expect him to be up there. And that brings me to this. I could see a podium with, how they call them, the big 3. And now there's been a lot of talk recently that the big 3 is not really a thing in cyclocross because Pidcock isn't good enough. But I would like to discuss that a bit, because in my opinion the big 3 is not necessarily only about results and performances. I'd like to have your guys' take on that after I give mine, but I think that the big 3 is just based on reputation. And in terms of reputation, Van Aert and Pidcock are up there with Van der Poel. I mean, Van Aert has, of course, won 3 stages in the Tour this year, 7 Tour stages in total, gotten second in a lot of big races, also won a couple of big races last year. Van der Poel, you can say the same. For him, up there in the mountain biking, up there in the road, And this year, Pidcock also made that step. He won the he almost won the Amstel Gold Race. He won Brabantse Pijl. He won the Olympic mountain bike race. So in terms of reputation, he's up there. He's 5 years younger than Van der Poel and Van Aert. So he might not have the level that Van Aert and Van der Poel have now, but he's definitely promising. And the step he made in mountain bike and road racing does indicate that there should also be a step like this in cyclocross coming at some point. And does that make him immediately better than the rest, which is Van Toerenhout, Iserbyt? No. But based on his reputation, in my opinion, it's fair to speak about the big three, because these are the three people that really get the crowds to the cyclocross races.
Yeah, I think that we can say with 100% that we can speak of the big three. I mean, if it's not about their performances, it's about the fact that they bring such a following to cyclocross, and I can see it with the environment around me, that people are not really interested in cyclocross, or at least they don't follow it with a lot of passion. And then when one of the three is there, then all of a sudden they're going to watch, and they bring so many. They bring a very large audience to cyclocross in general, and you know, the impact they have on the people is huge. It's enormous. It's you know, the media starts speaking about them, and the commentators always have an eye out for them. And if they don't perform, everybody's talking about it. So you know, the effect that, for example, they have is not the same effect a Toon Aerts has or an Iserbyt has, or that is not really their fault. You know, we have just super talents at the moment, like you said. The palmarès of Van Aert and Pidcock and Van der Poel, there's a palmarès that a lot of road cyclists would dream of, and they already achieved that, and they're like not even halfway through the career, especially Pidcock. So you know, definitely the best three at the moment, the main three guys to look for. And I hope that in the results it's not going to be like that. I hope that in the result the others can keep up and can bring on the fight. But we have to be realistic. If all the three are 100%, I think it's going to be very tough for the others to mix it up and get a podium.
I do think it's really important indeed for you to mention with Pidcock. The guy is only 22 years old, and it was already 2 years ago that he was able to get a second place at the World Championships. And of course others have done it as well. And based on cyclocross results, like, he might be in there, he might just be like ahead of all the other guys, he might just be behind all of them. But I think it really gets easy to include him in the big three, because he is able to perform on the road as well, and he is competing with Van der Poel and outperforming Van der Poel in mountain bike. So I think that gives him a lot of credit as well. And as Issam said as well, if we're gonna see them at 100%, we might just see them quite a bit ahead of all the others this season.
And in addition, based on previous seasons, it was basically the big one, just Van der Poel dominating. And yes, last year Van Aert was a bit closer, but in years before, nobody even came close to the shoes of Mathieu van der Poel. Like 1 or 2 days a season, when Van der Poel either had bad luck or had an off day, there were some riders that could come close or beat him, but the amount of times that Van der Poel has been beaten in cyclocross races is ridiculously low. So in a way, if you're going to purely base it on performance, for years we've only had the big one, and always Van Aert was up there. So as said, I think purely based on what Pidcock does in terms of spectator numbers, he should be up there. Nevertheless, now let's focus more on the racing again. Pidcock, in my opinion, will also be challenged for a spot on the podium by the man informed the last couple of weeks, Michael van Toerenhout. Twan, what do you think? Do you think Van Toerenhout has a shot at the podium? Is he going to be the biggest contender for the riders who we discussed, or should we look at somebody else?
I think in Dendermonde it is very much possible that he is going to be up there, but maybe more of a look at his teammate, Iserbyt. Does seem like a bit more of a course that would suit him, although of course the muddier it gets, the more we are leaning toward Van Toerenhout. So that would be right. And he will be trying to challenge Pidcock as best as he can, of course. And it is very much possible that he is taking a podium spot in Dendermonde, I think.
And what about his teammate, Eli Iserbyt? Issam, what do you think? Iserbyt can secure the overall win if he outscores Michael van Toerenhout, scores less than 18 points, or loses less than 18 points on Twan Aert and loses less than 28 points on Quinten Hermans. What do you think Iserbyt can do in terms of performance, and do you think he will secure the overall?
Well, I don't know if he will secure it that race, but he will secure it eventually this season somewhere, because his lead is, gigantic. It's impossible for the others to catch up at this point. So, he has to ride 2 races or something, and then he's already in. But I find his stance, especially in Namur as well, in the interview where he was saying that, he was not really thinking that he was one of the guys to watch out for a podium. Obviously, he was only 5th in Ruffen. The way also that he said that he was riding to give Van Toerenhout the win, it was, I don't know, he is a bit in a kind of giving up situation, that is already like accepting the fact that it's not going to happen anymore, a victory. His last victory was in Besançon. That's already a while for him, to be honest. And we are already seeing the same tendency that we saw last year and the year before of an Iserbyt that is very good in the beginning of the season, but then when the others come, it's kind of game over for him, and then he doesn't find the condition and the shape that he had in the beginning of the season, which is a bit of a shame, because I think he's a very he's very good in his skills in general, going in through the corners and stuff. So he knows how to handle a bike. He's also a very smart guy, so he knows how to be tactically good in a race. So it's a bit of a shame, and I hope that he can find something in Dendermonde, but we have to be honest, I don't really see it happening, especially with the big 3. So it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't secure the victory in Dendermonde, but he has to do it in the upcoming races. So yeah, that's what I think about Iserbyt, to be honest. It's a question mark, but not a question mark for a podium, I think.
Yeah, his form hasn't been great. I think we should maybe look more towards Quinten Hermans. Hermans, of course, been very consistent. Unlucky in Namur, could definitely also be up there. Final name here we should mention is, I think, the one of Twan Aert. He was also unlucky in Namur. Do you guys think that he can bounce back? And what should he be aiming for here?
I think he shouldn't blow up. If he is keeping his cool, and he doesn't really take initiative and just follow the wheels like he did in Ruffen, but then takes initiative in the last 2-3 laps, I think he can have a chance if the race is going to be just a little bit more tactical, and he doesn't need to push for it. If the race is going to be a little bit faster and he can just stay in the wheels, I think that he has a chance of getting one of those podium positions. But then again, Van Aert, I don't think there's going to be anyone that is going to be beating him in Dendermonde, and you can put don't bet, but if you have to bet, you're forced to bet. I would put all my money on Van Aert winning Dendermonde. It's if he doesn't have a mechanical, if he doesn't crash, that's the guy to watch out for.
I think it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward, especially to the return of Mathieu van der Poel, and for the rest, I mean, if I look outside of the Belgian squad, there's unfortunately no Dubois and no Ruek, who have been doing pretty good in Namur. I mean, it could be something for Van Kessel, but also no very high expectations there. Koen has been improving over the last couple of weeks, but that's also maybe just an outside shot for a top 10. The Italians Bertolini and Dorigoni are coming, but they haven't been great lately either. And there's no Orts here. There's no... Yeah, Thomas Main and Ben Turner could be some outside shots. Turner was pretty good in Dendermonde last year, finishing 11th. And in terms of the Americans, if it's very heavy, I wonder what Gage Hecht can do. He's not been great lately, but I never fully count him out based on his performance at Fayetteville. But that will be interesting, just like Marcel Meisen has been doing pretty good recently as well. Let's turn to some predictions then. Issam, you already said it, Van Aert is your number 1. What do you see behind that?
Behind that, I think I would go for... I think that Michael van Toerenhout will be consistent enough to be on the podium, so I would say Van Toerenhout second. And then third will be filled up by... I think Van der Poel will be able to get out a third place. I think he will be third.
I'll go with Mathieu van der Poel victory ahead of Wout van Aert and Tom Pidcock.
I will then be going with the victory for Wout van Aert ahead of Mathieu van der Poel and Twan Aert. Let's talk a bit about the women's race then. We see a return of Marianne Vos, who skipped Namur, of course, not a long time without racing. But it's going to be muddy, or at least somewhat muddy. Do we think that Vos is going to be able to fight with Brand, or is Brand going to take the win?
I think that that Vos is gonna be able to follow. I think that Brand will have the feeling again that he has to take initiative in the race. I don't think Vos is gonna do that. Vos is gonna control the race. He's gonna make sure that the situations he's gonna end up in the last lap is gonna be the situation suited for her. And we know that that's gonna be a sprint or a very fast last lap. And I think that Brand is gonna do everything in her power to make sure that she's not gonna be able to get into that last lap in the scenario Vos wants to be. And I think that is gonna be a very good battle, because I don't know if Brand is gonna be able to drop Vos. I think she was pretty close in Rugven, but yeah, just Vos being the amazing rider she is, she's just able to follow amazingly. So I think that is going to be a very interesting battle. But then again, I think that is going to be the battle. I don't think that there's going to be someone else mixing it up. I think that those two are standing on a very high level at the moment, and those are the two women to beat at the moment as well.
I think if we see the same Lucinda Brand as we saw in Namur, that it's going to be very hard even for Vos to stay around her. I mean, it was just so strong what I saw from Brand there. So I think that's definitely going to be the battle, Brand against Vos. However, we maybe should look a bit further. Of course, the obvious name we come to is Betsema, but Twan, who do you see as the biggest challenger of Brand and Vos? Is it going to be Betsema or somebody else?
The problem with Betsema is at the moment she's just missing that 1%, right? And I don't really see her dropping both Brand and Vos, which makes it really tough. The one person I would see doing it, but it's an off chance because Annemarie Worster back, I think is playing up again because the results really aren't what you want them to be. But if she can get it right for one race again, like she did in Kokzijde, I think she is more of an outsider to take the victory than Betsema is.
Yeah, I do think Betsema's been improving over the last couple of weeks, but it's still not as good as it was the beginning of the season. And that's not necessarily bad. She can use this period to hopefully gain a bit of that form towards the championships. But what do you then think about Clara Honsinger? She ended on the podium here last year. She was a bit unlucky in Namur, like some other riders as well. Do you think that she can contend for a podium, or is her form just not good enough recently?
I think for Honsinger, it really has to absolutely pour it down, and we have to get something similar to last year, because she really needs a tough course, and I don't think she's quite on the best form at the moment. So I wouldn't necessarily count on her to challenge Brand.
I don't know, I think in Namur she could have gotten close to the podium without the bad luck. So yeah, it's a bit hard to tell what's going to happen there, but I do think that we will see her in the top 10. But then again, it depends on how hard the parcours will be. That's a bit of an unknown. Issam, do you have any other names you think we should keep in mind when we are looking at the podium?
Yeah, I definitely think that I'm interested to see what Alvarado can do. To be honest, I hope that she made that step, but to look for really contenders, I think Puk Pieterse and Van Empel, they have been very good the last couple of weeks in general, and the season overall has been very good for them. I think Van Empel is gaining confidence left, right, and center, and it looks very good. A parcours as Namur, which is very tough. She performed quite well in my opinion, and Pieterse as well. I mean, she was the best of the rest in a way. She pulled away in the first laps and was then able to hold the gap. I think that is quite a remarkable result, especially for somebody so young. So I think those two, can be outsiders for a podium for sure. And then we have to look to maybe a Van Anrooy or an Alvarado or maybe even an Inge van der Heijden, who has been good in a couple of races as well. So I think for the remainder spots on the podium and in general for the top 5, it can go some ways, but I definitely think that Pieterse and Van Empel will be up there for sure.
And what do we think about Capablanca Vos? She said about Namur that she had no excuses, just not good enough, and then eventually decided to pull out. The reason to pull out was not given, but I think that was perhaps just a drop of motivation on such a hard parcours. What do we expect from her now? She obviously was very strong before she took a break from cyclocross. Maybe Namur was too hard of a race to come back. I personally am a bit cautious about expectations. I think she should be able to come in the top 10, but I am not expecting the level we saw prior to Tabor from her, and that's purely just going off a very tough comeback in Namur.
I think if there is one race you want to quit, if you don't feel well, it is Namur. So it's a bit hard because it's normally when you do a race after such a long time of doing nothing, no competition rhythm in a way, it's obviously going to be hard. And I think Namur is not a race where you can get into a rhythm. If you don't find it, it's going to be very, very tough to keep going. And fortunate that it wasn't an injury or something, because we really didn't know anything when she DNF'd and didn't finish. We were kind of surprised in a way as well, because we didn't hear anything. The camera didn't pick it up in a way. So yeah, I think that with Dendermonde, she's going to have more time to get into a rhythm in a race. And as you said already, I don't think that Tabor is a level where you should be looking at, and especially how she was in that period in general. But I feel that she's not, she didn't lose 50% of her shape in general or something. I don't believe that. I think that she will be up there fighting with the women for maybe a remainder spot on the podium, or a top 5 or a top 10, but I don't think it's going to be that awful. But yeah, it's obviously hard to put a prediction on her head, because it's very difficult after Namur. You don't know where she's standing right now.
If I look a bit further on the start list, unfortunately no Burquet or Foucounet. They could have done pretty well here. From the Italians, maybe Artufi Lechner or Persico, one of them can get a top 10, but just like with Helene Clausel from France, these are riders who are having pretty good seasons, but you won't see them close to the podium, or you'll just see them in the top 10. Anna Kay, parcours is probably a bit too hard for her. Margerus, same goes for her. She's not having a great season. Level of cyclocross has really gone up, so it's a bit of a struggle for her. However, final name I do feel like I need to mention. Twan, what do you think that Magali Rochette can do here?
Magali Rochette on good form can certainly get in a mix for a top 5 podium sort of thing around this parcours, and certainly hope that we will be able to see that.
Well, Twan, then do you think she will get a podium? What's your prediction for the podium?
I'll go with a victory for Lucinda Brandt, second place for Marianne Vos, and the third goes to, Magali Rochette then.
I think Marianne Vos is going to win, and I will say that Brandt is going to be second, and I think I would just go with Betsema for third, because I think she has been very consistent overall in the season, had some ups and downs, but I feel that she is the third woman at the moment.
I will then go with a win for Lucinda Brandt ahead of Marianne Vos, and in third place Clara Honsinger. Well, that's it then for our Dendermonde preview podcast. As you can probably tell, we are really looking forward towards the comeback of Mathieu van der Poel, and the Christmas period means the beginning of a very busy period in terms of racing and podcast. We will be bringing a podcast still with Clara Honsinger on Friday. We had a bit of a change in date to record that, so that's coming on Friday. And following that, we have a lot of races coming up. First of all, Dendermonde on Boxing Day. The day after, we have Zolder. Then I think we get 1 day of rest before we have Loenhout and Diegem. And then 1 day of rest before we have Baal, Hulst. And following that, I think we're still packed with Herentals, and I think there's another race there, Gulligem probably. So plenty of podcasts coming up. Twan and Issam, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for hosting.
And Twan and Issam will be tuning in for the podcast later in the Christmas period as well as Tom, who will be joining us again a couple of times, and Jens Dekker. So we hope to bring some fun podcasts. Make sure to share it with your cyclocross friends if you think they will enjoy it, and leave a rating, because that's now also possible on Spotify. Thanks everyone for listening. Goodbye.